Hey guys, and welcome to the Cardinals Nation 24/7 podcast. This is episode 27, and what was going to be and will be a recap of the 2021 season. We're also going to discuss some big news that happened today. Joining me, as always, is the living legend Larry Cox. How you doing tonight, Larry?
All right, Chris, what do you know, man?
I know today was a crazy day for Cardinal fans, and also joining us, fellow co-host Jarrad Redwine. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, guys. I missed you guys the last couple of weeks. I'm excited to wrap up the season with you guys and maybe cover briefly the Arizona Fall League and what's going on. But yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, originally, the last time we were on, we were all excited about the Cardinals and the wild card game with the Dodgers, and we were kind of hoping to take one from them and continue with the playoffs. But obviously fell flat, and we can get into that here in a little bit. But the breaking news today that I think stunned us as well as a lot of Cardinal fans out there was the word that the Cardinals have fired manager Mike Shildt. And I'll say Jarrad was the first one. He sent me a text message. I couldn't believe that this happened. Obviously, I hop on Twitter and see these legit sources that are saying that it did happen, and there was a press conference. I'll ask both of you just your original reaction, your initial reaction, as well as if you tuned into the press conference, what your thoughts were on the reasonings behind it. So I'll start with you, Jarrad.
For me personally, I was actually shocked. I know a lot of people have been asking for Schill to be let go, but for a guy that I thought he was pretty. There could have been some rumblings, but after they went on that 17-game win streak and very easily took the second spot in the wild card, and then they put on a good game against the Dodgers. I actually thought he was going to be secure, especially having another year left on his contract. I didn't see the Cardinals moving on. There was even just a few days ago rumblings in the news by substantial sources and actual reporters, not freelancers, that there might be an extension in the works. So I was definitely, I know Cardinals Nation wanted him gone for whatever reason, but I was definitely shocked, especially with the candidates are out there. Nobody really stands out to me, but I was surprised, and it brings a lot of questions to light, which I'm sure we're going to get to. But my initial reaction was definitely shocked.
Yeah, and I'm sure Larry, you probably feel the same way. I mean, we've all kind of critiqued Schilt throughout the season on some things, but given the run that the Cardinals had to get into that playoff spot, and granted, you can't give him all the credit for that, but it was the team that he was heading the team that put that run together. So it's kind of comes as a shock. I know for me and Jarrad, but what say you on that?
Yeah, when it first came out, and I seen Jarrad had sent that out message as well, and I said, this is fake. This isn't real. I mean, manager wins 17 games in a row, and then they go in, they play the Dodgers, who they're what they have built as a team. We held our own with even with Wainwright on the mound, the 40-year-old pitcher, and I thought we played a pretty good game until the very end, of course. And I didn't know what to think, and then even watching the press conference, it even looked like DeWitt didn't know what was going on to some extent. It was just I don't know, it was just random or just an odd occurrence, I guess, today. And like you said, it was just a weird feeling that what the hell just happened here.
Well, I will say I didn't get to watch the press conference. I did get to listen to it on the radio. I've seen where they do have the video version out. I want to check that out after our show here later. But just hearing what the press conference was and some of the reporters that were asking Mo questions on the reasoning behind it. Obviously, Mo's not going to come out and give every detail of things, and maybe that's to save face for Schilt or to save face for the organization. But there was one kind of key thing that he kept repeating was just the difference of opinion and the direction of the club and the philosophical differences, basically. And to be so vague about it, because he would repeatedly say that. And when asked by Jeff Passan from ESPN, then what really is your team philosophy if you can't discuss what the differences are? What is your team philosophy? And he wouldn't address that either. So it was very, nip and tuck on things that he was letting out. I found it very strange because Mo is always monotone and doesn't get overly excited, but it just seemed like there was more to what was being told to us. He's not going to tell us everything, but it seemed like there was a lot of tight-lippedness, just in my opinion. What say you on that, Jared?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot more to it. I didn't expect. I don't know what you guys actually thought, but I knew, even though we all tuned in to listen to the press conference, I knew we weren't going to get really any details other than the fact he was gone. They never really say anything, even during the trade deadline. The Cardinals are probably one of the best of by having a press conference to announce nothing. But there's two things that you can take away from this. Is one is him and Mo had a serious falling out at some point in time, which means they didn't have the same vision. In which case, ownership's going to back Mo. Or two, which I think is probably more likely, is there was some differences in the team, and I think a lot of players probably were not happy and voiced their opinion. There has been some rumblings. There was an interview with Nagowski after he left, and he kind of stumbled over some things about Shildt. And, Mozeliak even said one thing today, like some things had came up and had come to light, earlier in the season. So I'm thinking the only way you make a move like that when you have a manager that has a winning record, has a better winning record than Matheny or La Russa had during their tenure, manager for 3 years, makes the playoffs all 3 years, was manager of the year last year. Even though a lot of people weren't happy with certain things, there definitely has to be something going on there. I think the difference of philosophy maybe would be approach, and it's hard to tell because we don't know the facts. We do know that they said Jeff Albert was going to stay, so it makes you wonder, like maybe if they had a hitting approach and Shildt was going another direction, and then maybe because someone even said they started using that approach recently when they were going on their win streak. Who knows who's right or wrong? But we definitely know there was definitely a difference. But I would have to think, they said that the players were shocked. Of course, no, they're not going to say, yeah, the players were like, yeah, we knew he was getting fired. They're all going to say the politically correct thing. But either him and Mo had some huge falling out at some point, some blowout, or there was a lot of players that said things over time, which you would think would have to be players of credibility to make something like this happen. But something definitely happened. And another thing the Cardinals would do this early in the offseason, I know they said they were thinking about, doing it for Shilt's advantage, but the Cardinals they're not stupid. They've always planned. They obviously have people in place. And then, not to make my answer long-winded, but they also said, do you have any internal candidates? Whether they do or not, Mozeliak's going to say yes, like he did today. Even if he has no intention of giving Clapp or Marmol a chance at managing, he's not going to say that. So obviously his politically correct answer is going to be, yes, I think we have internal candidates that can do the job. Whether or not they think it's going to be one of them or not, we'll find out.
Yeah, and I think Mo, I'm not saying he practices these speeches, before he gives them, but it seems like if he does say something that he lets slip out that could be taken and ran with, I think it's almost intentional. Like you said, I mean, very close to the vest on anything, whether it's the trade deadline or any kind of press conference. That's just Mo's way of dealing with it. He was asked if there was any kind of clashing between Shildt and Jeff Albert that led to this decision, and Mo did say that is not the sole reason. And for him to, say it like that and to use that word makes me think, well, if that's not the reason, that's partly the reason. So, Larry, I'll kick it over to you on the press conference and just it's just a guessing game for all of us to think what the reasonings could be. What are your takeaways on the presser and the way that Mo handled that? There's got to be some things he's saying to make you think.
Well, we looked first off, even Wong made the comment not too long ago about the hitting approach in the St. Louis Cardinal organization, how he blossomed after leaving, which neither here nor there. But like you said, when he said that was the sole reason, that led me to believe there is an internal rift between him and Alberts. And us as fans, I don't think we can see the internal organization, what's going on. We all year long have been blaming, the hitting coach for the lack of hitting, the lack of scoring. But if the manager himself is the reason that we're not hitting because of the approach that he's taking, or maybe the strategies he's using, that could have been a problem that we are not aware of because, again, Mo's so tight-lipped. But even in the recent weeks, that's what Chris and I were talking about before you came on, Jared, was We were talking about like even like with the John Gruden stuff going on right now and all that going on. We just don't know. I mean, to speculate that he did something, externally, like an email or something, I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying we just don't know in the politically correct world. He could have just simply said a word that they didn't like, and that's it. And right now the Cardinals, they don't want a black eye, so let's get out in front of it. Let's get rid of this guy. Or the other option is, like we said, is maybe there's a manager they know is going to be on, that's going to be let loose that they want, let's say a Skip Schumacher or somebody like that. Maybe they want to be able to move freely because, that's a younger guy coming in of his own. I don't know. I think we're all just speculating right now. But the press conference was it was a very strange thing. And you could tell it was haphazardly put together because they did Zoom, and that's not a Cardinals thing. That's always, the Cardinals background, and they always have the formal media director and all that. And this was just a hodgepodge, and it was just a weird way they did it. And even like when Brian, whatever his name is, the media director, they introduced John Mozeliak. He said, "No, let's start with Mr. DeWitt." And they had to go back to DeWitt, who goes, "Well, I'm just going to toss it over to you." And then it's like, so why did we include the owner that didn't say anything? So it was a very, very strange thing. And then even like you said, having all the reporters kept prying, well, what is your philosophy? What is your game strategy? Well, we know he's not going to tell that. So, but they just kept pressing him. It was just, I don't know. It was just so weird.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different, reporters that were asking the same questions, whether it was Jim Hayes or Randy Karraker or whoever, on the approach of this team, or did you see this coming throughout the season, or was this, at the season's end, any specific end game thing that happened, or the overall team record, what is it? And it, all come down to Mo basically being like, had nothing to do with the wins and losses this year. To me, that's strange. I mean, there's just, I don't know. It's hard. Like Jarrad said, the guy's been a manager for, 3 years that had, good season making the playoffs, one season without, and here he is without a job. Now, honestly, if you think that ain't the direction that the team is going to succeed in, I can see that being, the excuse given. And he did say that, but there's just too many things to speculate on because it was very, very confusing. I mean, nobody really wanted to get out in front of anything. It was just, hey, Mo says some other person was involved and he didn't want to give out names, but they all come together with this decision. And it wasn't easy, but it wasn't kind of like we wish Mike all the best, type of thing. There was none of that. And that's what really shocked me. Jarrad, what do you think of that?
I mean, it goes back to another thing that, Mozeliak did say is that, there were things he said, he said philosophy, but then, he also said that certain things were brought to light throughout the course of the year, which to me would be somebody telling him something, not him finding, i.e. a player or something of that nature. And I just think you don't make that move with a guy like Shildt without cluing in, your Wainwright or your Molina. I feel like players somewhere had to have a good idea. And also, like we talked about, the Cardinals always plan. I don't care what they say. If you're going to let a manager go for a winning team, you have to have a plan in place. So I think they already have their managerial target in mind or already working for the team somewhere. They've got a plan in place, or else, you would roll with what you have until you found, you're not just going to cut him loose and say, well, hopefully we find someone. That's my take on it. I mean, that's my opinion, like everyone says, but he said certain things came to light, difference of philosophy. Now you have to look at, what caused that 17-game win streak. We don't know. It could have just been the players being players and doing well. And we also mentioned the Colton Wong thing with his hitting approach. Tommy Edman kind of said the same thing earlier. And then if you don't remember, shortly after that, Tommy Edman didn't play for a while. That would be a Mike Shildt decision. Whether Shildt wanted that to get out or not, probably not. That could have been discipline just because you're talking out of turn about the team. Or it could have been Shildt being mad because Tommy was referencing something directly with Shildt. We'll never know. But we all do know from, Moneyball, making the lineup out is the manager's job, regardless of who I'm sure, that's probably a little different scenario. If Mozeliak says, hey, we want you to play this guy, they're going to play him. But there's some varying factors there, and all of these players have been around for a long time. Then you've also got, they've already declined options on Carpenter and Martinez, which I'm sure we're going to get into. Fowler's off the books, got a lot of money changing hands. Andrew Miller's not going to be back with the team. So the Cardinals, making this move, they know the pressure is going to be on, especially when you make the playoffs. You have a winning team. You've got all this money coming off the books. What are you going to do? If it doesn't work out now, this is going to come back on Mo. So I think the pressure is definitely on him. And then you have to look at philosophy. What is the philosophy of the Cardinals? He wouldn't say that. We do know the philosophy this year was shit because, as you even, posted recently, Chris, on the page, is that, all the minor league teams performed very poorly this year. So whatever the organizational approach or philosophy was this year, overall, it didn't really work.
Yeah, and we can continue to scratch our head and speculate on the reasonings behind it, but at the end of the day, Shildt had a bad day, was apparently shocked, as Mo put it, but he is no longer the manager. We've
He
kind
did
of
say
talked
that too. I actually thought Mozeliak would have said, "I'm not sure his reaction." Most talks like a politician. I would have thought he would have said, "Well, I'm not sure how Shildt reacted. That would be a question for him." But he did say, "I would describe his reaction as shocked."
Yeah, and he did also point out, too, that he wasn't going to get into discussions on it, but he said that if Mike Shildt felt the need to, that's something that could be asked of Shildt and he could answer it. And I thought that was kind of almost like a backhanded type of, response, was kind of like, hey, I'll wash my hands of this shit. If he wants to talk about it, he can air out grievances, but, we're done here.
And he was there for 18 years. And usually what I've always said as someone that's managed a lot of people in the past, and Larry, I know you have too, usually if you're going to fire somebody, it's usually not a surprise to them. They may act like they're shocked, but usually to employees, if you're going to get fired, it's usually not. You can feel it coming because if you're doing a good job managing that person, they know they've been messing up.
Yeah, that was the thing. I mean, like Matheny, we seen the writing on the wall. They kept talking about it. His seat was hot. It's getting warmer and warmer every day. We seen it coming. The hiring of Mike Shildt, we thought was, interim or what have you. Then he goes on, he becomes manager of the year. Now he's gone 2 years later. It's a strange situation all the way around. And I just don't think this is typical Cardinal organizational stuff. I mean, usually, like I said, everything is always formal. Everything is always upfront. And that's why it leads me to believe there's something that has happened as far as, like Jarrad said, maybe something in the clubhouse has been said, or maybe he doesn't get along with his players as well as we think he does. And maybe there is some truth to the fact that maybe it's not the hitting coach that's the problem. Maybe it was the manager. And so, but we know, eventually it comes down to, the guy in charge is the guy that has to roll. If something goes wrong, you can only fire so many coaches after so long and realize you're not getting anywhere. But again, even saying that he hasn't even met with the coaches yet, Mozeliak said, I haven't even met with the staff, so I don't even know who's coming back because we do have a couple of their contracts are up. And so that even leads me to believe, which managers are coming back. And if you do hire an outside the organization manager, shouldn't he be allowed to pick the coaches he wants? I mean, Mozeliak has saddled our last two managers with his coaches, not with who the manager wanted. So maybe there's a little babysitting going on. I mean, wasn't it like a couple of years ago, was it Norris or whoever it was that was supposedly the tattletale that was babysitting the pitchers and Hicks and those guys? And that was kind of the inside thing. You had that babysitter thing going on. And I don't know, maybe that's something to do with it. We don't know. I mean, we can keep guessing and kicking this can down the road, but we all know that it's going to come out in the next couple of days because the media is not going to turn loose of it. They're going to pull it out and it's going to eventually come out. Here's why it happened. And we're going to hear from Shildt. It's going to come out. He's going to have to talk eventually.
The only thing we do know is he did make the comment, Jeff Albert's under contract and they expect him to be back. That is the one coach they did mention. So it kind of, sheds light on, if they're going to say that they have an approach that they like, I would guess it would be backing Albert and not Shildt. That would be my guess.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. I mean, and that's crazy for us to think that as hit and miss and feast or famine as the offense has been, we kind of thought, Jeff Albert, maybe, he's the target. And because his system is implicated throughout the minors and every minor league has had like record lows, you would think, hey, this is year 3, or is it 4 of Jeff Albert? How long does this system take for everybody to get on board with? I mean, you're looking at almost half a decade now, of his philosophy. And if it's the analytics that you're, into, I can see that, but come out and say it. I don't know what that hurts if Mo would have answered that question today and said, we're, very analytically driven. That isn't the end all be all of it, but, that's the direction that we want to go with. And he just would not talk about it.
And that's what I kind of wonder too. I mean, if you're saying, okay, we're going to implement the Jeff Albert's theory of hitting, it has to trans all the way down to the high A ball. Then it has to work its way back up through the system for those players to bring that system into major leagues. So why is he in St. Louis? Why isn't he at Peoria or Springfield or Memphis teaching his philosophy instead of in St. Louis? That's what I never understood, that theory. You don't bring a guy and switch what got him to the major leagues. You don't switch that mentality at the major league level and hope to get success. You just don't.
And then sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and then we've talked about this before too. In the end, it's up to the players. So if the players, if Albert's talking to some of the players like Arenado or Bader or whoever, and he says, "Hey, here's what I think would help you," whether the player applies that or not is really up to him. It would almost have to be like Shildt going up and saying, "Don't do that. Don't do what he said." And then Bader or Goldie or whoever would have to be like, "Yeah, I'm going to listen to Shildt." They're probably going to do their own thing anyways. Most of the guys on this team that were in the lineup every day. So it's hard to pinpoint. That's why I figured there had to be difference of opinion, or maybe people didn't like the way he was managing and a couple of things were said. I don't know. It's weird, and not to have somebody else picked out, because we all probably are under the same assumption, at least I am, that Shilt's going to be hired by somebody, and probably somebody that needs a manager at the end of the year. It could be the Padres. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, with bringing in Goldie and Arenado this year, you have 2 superstars. Maybe they got into Mo's ear and said, "This is not how we did it in Arizona and Colorado with other guys, and we don't understand what Shilt's philosophy is here." Maybe that was the confusion. And maybe, the threat of Nolan saying, "Hey, this guy's gone, or I'm going to go ahead and opt out." You know what I mean? We don't know. And I'm not saying that is the case at all. I'm just saying, again, we're speculating so much here, and we're just guessing just like everybody else is. And we're by far no experts.
They weren't winning much in Colorado or Arizona. I can tell you that.
But you look at Nolan and just the batting average alone, look at the dip in the batting average, which we knew was going to happen outside Colorado anyway. But, you have 2 superstars telling you, hey, his philosophy, his approach isn't working. And even like a couple of years ago, I kept posting in the group an article I had read about hitting coaches and their philosophy and how it works and translates to the players. Their job is basically, this pitcher you're facing tonight, here's how he sets you up. Here's how he pitches against you. And you have to apply that. They don't come in and say, "Well, Jarrad, your elbow's up and out." And this isn't Little League. You're a professional hitter. That's your job that got you here. You're making millions of dollars. My job is to tell you, hey, this guy, if you're facing Kershaw tonight, he's going to set you up with his down away. He's going to come inside and strike you out. That's what a hitting coach does in the major league. But I think with Alberts, it's been simple. Take pitches and look for the zones. And I honestly miss the Big Mac era. I'm sorry. He told those guys, if this is your zone, you watch for pitches in that zone and you hit it. And other than that, you'll just stay away from it. That was it was just simple.
Yeah. And, while we've speculated on everything, on reasonings, I guess we can speculate on who the next manager will be. He did mention, there could be a couple in-house candidates. I think that's safe to say that it could be Stubby Clapper, Ollie Marmol, that are the internal options. If you're looking externally, Skip Schumacher might be a fit, although he could be a front runner for the Padres gig. I'm not sure, the direction they'll go there. But in your opinion, would you go with a guy like Stubby Clapp, who had success in Memphis, and with the roster currently the way it is, he won those titles with a Tyler O'Neill, with a Harrison Bader, I was kind of a little shocked originally that he didn't get the job when Shildt got the job. For him to be called up and, become the first base coach, I'm not saying that was a slap in the face at all. I mean, he made it to the big leagues, but I was a little, I guess, confused that he would get first base coach while Shildt gets brought up with no managerial experience at that level too, and immediately thrust into that role. Would you go with a Stubby Clapp and feel comfortable? Because I think next year is a all-in year. I mean, they know that it's the farewell tour of Waino and Yachty, and they know that Arenado wanted to come back and he's not going to opt out. So I think there's a lot of pressure there of win now. And, I don't see them going out of the organization and bringing in somebody that has no feelers on the current state of the team. I think they bring in somebody that already has that close connection, whether that be a Clapp or somebody. So what say you, Jarrad, on that?
I agree with you. I think it has to be somebody that the players are going to actually like. I mean, not that they didn't like Shildt, but I think they don't want to ruffle feathers, kind of like you said. The team's going to be set, and then obviously they're not going to want to bring in, a lot of people have always said they like Joe Girardi, but you're not going to see like a Girardi come in because Girardi's one of those guys that also speaks his mind, and it's evident now that they're going to want someone that's just going to do what they tell them to do for the most part, be a player manager, follow through with whatever they want to do. But, they say philosophy, but, it was even brought up, I think, might have been Derek Gould that brought it up, Shildt have been in the system, with the Cardinals for 18 years. If anybody knows the philosophy or what they want to normally do, you would think it would be Shildt. So he would have had to have been doing something to go against the grain or to rub people the wrong way, whether it was not making enough free agent moves or something, we'll never know. But, Marmol, I think he's well liked. Clapp, I'm with you. I thought he had a good shot to be the manager originally, but that didn't happen. But, who knows? I mean, bringing in Shildt and Athene didn't work, so who knows? I don't know. I don't know where they go from here, but I think they have to have a pretty good idea of who they want, or they wouldn't have done what they did today.
Yeah, and what's you on that, Larry? I mean, do you think keeping things in-house? I mean, that's been the Cardinal way with, bringing in Matheny with no managerial experience, doing the same with Shildt. Do you do that with Clapp, who has no MLB managerial experience? If you go outside with Skip Schumacher, again, there's no MLB big league managerial experience. I mean, it's kind of, you're damned if you don't, damned if you do either way. I don't know that a long-term manager that gets fired this year or, somebody like a Buck Showalter or Bochy comes out of retirement, I don't think that's the move that the Cardinals make either.
I don't see them like Bruce Bochy. If he's going to come out, he's going to be a Padres manager. He's not going to come over to the East Coast or Central. And then the one name I want to make sure we get this off right now, Oquendo is not the next manager, guys. He's just not. It isn't going to happen. He's already said repeatedly he wants to stay in Florida. He likes what he does. He likes his position in the organization. Clapp, I was always surprised. Why would you abandon AAA if he's done, he's winning for you, he's teaching the systems. And I think they were afraid to lose him. And like Chris and I were talking about before Jarrad joined us, before we started recording, that several teams have actually inquired about interviewing with Stubby Clapp. I think even like the Phillies last year, the year before, they talked to him. And I think there's a lot of teams that have actually interviewed with him. Maybe that was just an opportunity to get him some experience as first base coach. Hey, here's the life on the road. Here's how it works. Here's what we do. And now he can become a manager. And maybe that is the in-house. Right now, the only names I've heard really out there are Ron Washington, who's still playing, still managing with the Braves. They've said that they're going to interview with him for the Padres job. Skip Schumacher is the other one that I keep saying. But hey, you know what? There's a guy playing DH first base out there in California that's retired. One of the smartest baseball minds we've ever seen play in my time. Maybe he wants to manage. I don't know. I mean, there's some guys out there who have done it. So maybe that Albert Pujols guy comes back and manages. I don't know. If we're going to get ridiculous, let's make it a good one.
I've got something ridiculous for you. If you think Albert Pujols is into coming back, there was a question to Tony La Russa about where Pujols should go next year. And he said he would like to see him go to St. Louis. Well, what if La Russa follows too? And you've got the farewell tour of La Russa, Pujols, Wainwright, and Yachty. And I know that's completely gibberish, but We'll just
They already announced Deleuze is going to be back with the White Sox next year.
horseshit.
Yeah, but hell, he could fall asleep at a red light and they could fire him. Who knows? Oh,
Well, I did see there was actually a couple of actual reporters saying that they expect the Cardinals to talk to Mark McGwire. I don't know if you guys saw that or not.
No, I didn't see that.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing with Mark. I mean, that would honestly, I think that would be a good fit.
I think it was Joel Sherman, and I'm trying to think of who else. They said that they would be shocked if they didn't interview Mark McGwire.
But I mean, he's not been managing or doing anything lately, has he? I mean, he's not involved
in a couple of years. I haven't seen him since he was hitting instructor for the Dodgers.
Right.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, I guess stranger things could happen, but it's just been a crazy day. I mean, I didn't see it coming. I'm sure the Cardinals are going to be addressing that as quickly as possible when the season wraps up. They're not going to want to wait too long to announce who the new manager will be. So definitely just, craziness, I mean, pretty wild.
Well, like we said, though, Chris, even before, they had to ask Major League Baseball for permission to even hold the press conference to announce it today.
Yeah.
Because they're not supposed to announce any big deals during the playoffs.
Yeah, it was definitely strange timing. I guess we can jump ship from talking about Shildt's firing and the direction of the team going forward to kind of recapping a little bit of, the 2021 season. I know we were, again, as I said at the beginning of the show, we were all excited going into the one-game playoff. And, I know that's happened. There's some time passed now, so it's a little different than being fresh off the walk-off where we're all disappointed. But, just looking back at that one game, I mean, obviously we can talk about the season too, but that one game, it was an ace performance, basically Wainwright and Scherzer. It was a tough battle. A great game all the way around, except for if you're a Cardinal fan and seeing your team be 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. You can't really win too many games that way. The way Shildt kind of handled the bullpen there at the end, and I'm not saying that had anything to do with his firing, but you bring in Reyes, where in my opinion, you've got a healthy Flaherty and Hudson, still on the bench that you could go to. It didn't work out for the Cardinals. So a tough way to lose, but I think the run to get to the playoffs and the fact that, nobody really saw it coming, the last month, this team putting it on, and making that run, there's a lot to be said with the grit and grind of this team. So even though we were disappointed, I don't think it was as heartbreaking of a loss, even losing in that fashion, as it would be if we had higher expectations. What say you, Jared?
Yeah, the Cardinals came out. They played a good game. They played a very good Dodgers team against a very good pitcher, Max Scherzer, and really in all aspects, Wainwright outpitched Scherzer, in my opinion. The Cardinals just could not capitalize, and honestly, people were upset about the Reyes situation, but we were, I think, 0 for 11 with runners in scoring position. That's something that can't happen, especially against a good team like the Dodgers. And basically, it came down to two little mistakes, 2 pitches, one to Turner and then one to Michael Taylor, and that's what cost us the game. And I wasn't too upset about the Reyes situation. You can go back and analyze, but I go back and I kept saying it. I was watching it with a group of people at a local establishment, and I just kept saying that if we gave it too many opportunities. I'm like, we can't let the Dodgers back in this. They're going to make us eat all these lost opportunities, and that's what they did. But it was a good game. It's why I love the wild card game, because it's intense, but I also hate the wild card game because it's only one game. And I would have hated that. If you're a Dodgers fan, you hate it too. You go out and win over 100 games, and you got one game. You lose that, you're done after that whole season. I still think it's a jacked up format, and it should totally be a best of 3. And people say, oh, the season's too long. Well, go from 162 games to a 160 game season and make the wild card a best of 3. Each team, you have to have one off day in between, but then each team gets at least one game at home for making the playoffs, because the Cardinals make the playoffs, go on a 17-game winning streak, and don't get a single playoff game at Busch Stadium, which I think is a loss, and the fans put in a lot of time and effort. So wild card should be a best of 3. I mean, I do like the intensity, but I mean, you make one mistake and you're done. And especially for the Dodgers, for 100 games, and second best team in baseball, and they're a wild card.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I mean, when watching that game, obviously, I like to see runs being scored. Those close games where it's 1-0, 1-1. Those are nail biters, but you are on the edge of your seat. And the Cardinals, I put a post up after we lost that game that as much as it stings and sucks, we were entertained with that run to get there, as well as an entertaining game where they didn't jump out on us and beat the shit out of us, be up 6-0. We're totally deflated for the 9 innings and don't even have emotionally invested, in that game. So just seeing that it was a good game and we hung with them, I know some fans that leaves a bitter taste in their mouth of we shouldn't want to hang with that team. We should feel superior. Well, the talent on this team is not superior to the Dodgers. They proved they could hang with them, but we did not have top to bottom a better team than the Dodgers. So I was content, I guess you could say, with the loss. It was disappointing, but I think you can hang your hat on a pretty good team there and a really good wild card game. Larry, what do you think?
There was a couple of things I didn't understand. I mean, we proved we could run on their catcher, and we didn't. When we got base runners, we stopped running on him after the first couple of steals. It didn't make sense. I'm the Whitey ball era. Let's put pressure on him and make them make the mistakes. But Wainwright inning for inning matched Scherzer and outpitched him, I think. And then as far as the Reyes pitch, I never understood the pitch selection. Why is he throwing a curveball again? Somebody explained that to me. The kid throws 100 miles an hour, and it's a one-game do or die, and the first pitch he throws a curveball. I mean, and it hung. I mean, that's all you can say. Now, do I blame Reyes? No, I don't blame Reyes. He's a kid. Whether or not we know he's been that projected all-star superstar for years and years and years, but he's been derailed by injuries and the broken hand, the drug problem with the marijuana, which now is legal in all those states. But anyway, neither here nor there. But the other thing is, the kid has still not had a lot of experience in major leagues. And this is his first year as a closer, and he 24 for 24. I don't know, just set a record this year. And then you can't abandon that kid coming into the playoffs. You can't. And he went out there and he took the ball, and it happens. I mean, I remember when Albert Pujols, crushed the ball off of a closer, and the guy came back the next year and was the best closer in baseball. So, and Reyes is probably not slated to be a closer next year. I mean, he wants to go to the rotation. So all in all, I mean, for us to go against the number one spent money-wise team in baseball and hang with them for as long as we did, I was impressed. I'm sorry. Fans can get offended or whatever you want to say, but I think that last 21, 22 games of the season that we played overall, I think that's the best baseball we played in years. I mean, years. The team that night that I was at the Cardinals and the Padres game, you could see the momentum from one team to the other shift that, the Padres came on the field and they were laughing about the 2011 World Series guys being out there. And it was like, blah, 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 blah. And then when they lost and they got swept, you could see the defeat in that on the other side of the field. And I think that's the biggest difference is our team went from that, hey, let's see if we can sneak in and get this done, to, hey, you know what? We belong here. And that's huge considering, really, if you look at it across the board, I mean, what's our average age? 26, 27 across the board for average. We've got two guys that are superstars at the corners. Catcher behind the plate is going to make his last year, so we know everybody's going to go out and do what they can do for Yachty to get that number 12 this year get number 12 championship on his way out, make it a good year for him. So I'm excited, and I really don't care who the manager is, because a good or bad manager only makes the difference of maybe one or two games a season anyway. Tony La Russa, living proof.
Well, looking at that game, and I know we've critiqued Shilt's managerial skills on some of the moves that he would make or not make. There were some questionable moves, in my opinion, in that game where, Wainwright, he was pitching well. You got to tip your cap to him. He got you where you needed. But he came up to bat. I know there was 2 out, but he had a runner on base. If you're carrying Yepez and Nootbaar and Rondon, and you've got several guys, that it was almost like, I'm going to put Wainwright back out because I think that gives us a chance to maybe keep them at bay. It was like he's trying not to lose, not trying to win. like try to get that run across, in my opinion. I mean, I know that would have pissed Wainwright off, but guess what? Scherzer was pissed when he got yanked out too. Sometimes you got to make that move.
Wainwright was pissed when he was taken out later. I thought he was taken out at an odd time.
Yeah, I just think a move like that, or I'm not saying the Reyes thing. Obviously, if you're 0 for 11, you can't pinpoint that one thing and totally let that fall on being Reyes' fault or Shilt's fault. I'm just saying you have guys like Hudson that he's went to the last couple games. The same with Flaherty, that they're available. You could have put those guys in to extend that game further, in my opinion. And I know you've got Gallegos that had the nail issue that happened during the game, but you carry Genesis Cabrera that had a nail issue that you weren't going to use him. Why was he on the roster? There were some things that it just didn't make sense. It doesn't all fall on Shildt, but there was some head scratching things that didn't really help our cause out.
Yeah, but even with the roster moves, that's not a Shildt thing. That's John Mozeliak decides the roster. I mean, I'm sure they have that conversation, but Shildt has no say in who's on the roster going into the playoffs. That comes from the GM or the president of baseball operations. So,
yeah, I get that. I just, like I said, with the letting Wainwright bat there, I don't know. It just seemed it was playing not to lose instead of going out and really, throwing everything he had. Like you said, that you could have run on their catcher more. You could have done some things, be a little more aggressive. I think it was, playing that safe ball.
Lost your we can't hear
you
you.
lost your sound, Chris. And I mean, can you hear us, Chris? I mean, we can't hear you at all.
Go ahead.
So it's just, I understand. I mean, we can't blame everything on one or two happenings in that game. That's part of baseball. That's what we like baseball. It's the human nature of the game, and that's the differences. The makeup of the team, the rosters and stuff. You benched guys that should have been on the roster, should have came up and should have had an opportunity. I mean, we go all the way back to Nagowski and those guys. How come he never got a chance to even attempt to play? And then we trade him away, and that's the thing that I didn't like. And then even like with Sosa, Sosa booted 2 balls early on that could have cost us. And yet we didn't, there was no movement there. I'm not saying that it was a smarter move for DeYoung to be out there than Sosa, because the energy that Sosa brings is 10-fold better than DeYoung's right now. But is DeYoung a product of who knows what in that slumps and the hitting abilities or lack thereof? But yet we know he's sure gloved. I mean, that's the thing. We know he's going to make those plays. So I don't know. I don't think the outcome could have changed or been any different. I think a couple of moves here or there may have prolonged the game, but I agree with Chris that Wainwright should have not hit in that inning. If you're going to pull him, or you thought you were going to pull him, why did he go up with 2 outs and a runner in scoring position? Especially when we are already at that point, like 0 for 9 or 0 for 8 with runners in scoring position. So, try again, Chris.
No, I'll just shoot it back over to Jarrad and let you go on about it.
No, just some of the moves didn't make sense, but the whole Reyes thing didn't really bother me. He said before the game they were going to go with the guys that got him to dance, and up until recently Reyes had still been really good, even if you look at his numbers other than his walks. But he hit, he did set a record for saves earlier in the season. So he comes in, he strikes out the side, and people say, well, that's what he's capable of. He's got real good stuff, but that one, there was other things. If you're going to analyze that move, kind of like you said, Chris, you could go back and look at, not taking, like you guys said, not taking Waino out for a pinch hitter when you have Rondon, who had just been absolutely killing it as a pinch hitter. You brought Juan Yepez up for that sole reason of his bat, and we didn't see him make an appearance. So, I mean, there was opportunities to do different things, especially when offense and runs were obviously at a premium, and we weren't getting the runs in. You want to try to get it. Anytime you have a scoring opportunity, you want to lift the pitcher for a bat.
Yeah.
So
we had no pinch hitter at all that game. I know when you brought in DeYoung, that was a double switch type of thing. No pinch hitter at all that game. So it's a head scratcher. And, I'm sure like when we jump on here next week or something, we can judge, like give grading cards, on what the players each position have done. But, we can kind of touch on this real quick. The players that the Cardinals will not be bringing back. They've basically said they're not going to bring back Carlos Martinez and Matt Carpenter. Obviously, Andrew Miller won't be coming back. I'm pretty sure KK Kim will not be in the mix with the Cardinals. Are any of these guys? I mean, we've talked all season long about, some of them being dead weight or, just needing to cut ties with them. This opens up a lot of money, for the Cardinals to use. But also when you bring back Wainwright and it's a $17.5 million deal, which that's a head scratcher to me. I know he's kind of earned it and it might be a parting gift type of contract. You're still going to have money to play with, but I don't know that it's as much money as what we kind of expected. I thought maybe Wainwright to get like a 12 million, deal. 17.5, that might put a little hamper, on something that they pull.
Well, what was Fowler's last year on his deal? Because that money came off too. So
yeah, that's true. He was what, 16 or 18 million.
So there's your Wayno money right there. So
I guess they could look at it that way. Jared, what do you think on that? I mean, you've obviously got. I don't see Carpenter or Carlos coming back on any type of a cheap deal. And if you did, I think Carlos would be the one of the two that you might entertain that more for. I think there's still maybe something in the tank there. But with Carpenter, there's absolutely not. And, what say you?
Yeah, Cardinals will get a deal from some other team for probably $5 million, somewhere around there. I'm guessing for a 1 or 2 year deal, maybe with an option. Somebody that, because he's got a lot of potential to have some good upside and be a good pitcher, and he probably won't be that great until he pitches against us, and then he'll be amazing. Carp, if he doesn't want to retire, I think everyone said he'll probably get a minor league deal with an invite to spring training to try to make a team that maybe might need an extra bat. Maybe someone gets injured, but it won't be with St. Louis, like you said. Kim, he won't be back. I don't know if he'll even play in the States again or in the MLB, I guess, because you have the Blue Jays. But I don't see him playing next year. Miller's off the books. That was a lot of money. Dexter Fowler's money will be gone. He got paid to sit at home with his torn ACL after he went to the Angels. So I mean, there is a lot of money coming off the books, and you have a lot of guys like hopefully Garcia and McFarland. I would like to see those two guys get offers to stay. But the Cardinals will still have a lot of money to float around. I mean, now this year, though, you got to remember people are looking at money, but now, next year we start paying Arenado. We didn't pay for him this year, but we will next year. So you have to kind of balance out the total money and see what's out there. But the Cardinals will have some money to spend. I totally think they could go out and get a pitcher and go out and get a shortstop and be fine. They could also move somebody like DeYoung. You're not going to get much out of him is the problem. But you can move him somewhere else. I still think they could find a way to move Kinsler this offseason, maybe trade for another pitcher somehow. The more Kinsler stays on the bench, the less valuable he is to us. And with this being Yachty's last year, how long they're going to keep Herrera down, who knows? I mean, there's some moves to be made, and I think the Cardinals will use it, and they're going to spend money. I mean, they were still number one in TV ratings. They got all that TV money that they kept saying they were waiting for. Attendance was down a little bit because of COVID, and also just because the fans got a little tired of the team. I think got a little stale, got a little stagnant. So I think they're going to want to do some exciting things to get people back to the ballpark. And Mozeliak's going to be into the gun, getting rid of Shildt. If they have a bad season next year, it's going to come back, and everyone's going to be questioning this move they made today.
Yeah, Larry, I'll kind of shoot the same thing over to you. Not just the players that Jared mentioned, but you also have you brought in LeBlanc, you brought in Happ, you brought in Lester. Those guys, I don't know if any of the three have an interest in coming back, or if the team would have any interest in bringing any of the three back. I think if they did have, Lester would probably be of the three.
God, I hope not.
I think if it was between Happ or Lester or LeBlanc, I think that Lester might be able to talk them into something. But with McFarland and Garcia, I was a little surprised not realizing that Garcia's in his mid-30s. I mean, he's a lot older than I thought he was, but he pitched well. The thing about relievers is, they can be great one year and bad the next. And at that age, I'm not sure that, he's a surefire thing. But we come into this season thinking we had a plethora of pitching. We had the Oviedos and Junior Fernandez, and we had all these guys that we thought were going to come up and contribute. And we still have those guys, plus a Helsley coming back and Hicks coming back. Do you think that the free agent class, you think they're going to address some pitching, or do you think they're going to go with the young guns again?
I honestly, another name we forgot was Justin Miller. That was another kid that they brought in too. LeBlanc, I could see them signing him on a invite to spring training. Lester, I mean, that's an insurance clause. You could bring him in and get some innings, what have you, because it seemed like he resurrected his career a little bit there toward the end. Hap, I want no part of. He really didn't do anything when he came over. Garcia, he scares me still. Did we get the best out of him this year? And because he's always had that wild control problem, but they said he went from like a 2-seam fastball to the 4-seam fastball, and he gave up the 2-seamer or vice versa. That had a lot of control issues, and that was a Yachty thing. Yachty actually brought that to him. McFarland, of course, we want him back. I think we go the route that John Mozeliak goes best. I think it's a trade somewhere. I think he finds that player, that a team that's trying to dump some salary somewhere, that's got a pitcher on this roster that they want to get rid of. San Diego, I mean, they got 12 pitchers over there now they're paying. I mean, that'd be maybe a good fit over there, maybe a conversation with them for one of those guys. But we've all seen what happened to them too. I mean, those guys started going down in groups and they were done. I still think we've got a lot of the young pitchers. The problem is Hicks and Reyes both want to go in the starting rotation. So now are you looking at those guys moving in? I don't know. I mean, is Hicks as effective if he's pitching 5 or 6 innings, knowing that he throws 104 or did? I don't know. We don't know what he's going to throw now. But the other thing is the shortstop thing now with the new manager. Does that become does Sosa or DeYoung become a pet project for a new manager? That they can try to resurrect that career for DeYoung, because we know he's got the power. We know he hits in bunches, but he's so streaky. But and like I said, he's still a good defender though. So that's the thing. And even like Jared said, who's the backup catcher coming in? That's the other thing. That's my biggest concerns. Andrew's just like he said, he's trade bait, and every day that he's back there, his trade value goes down. So maybe dump one of those young pitchers and toss an Andrew in and go get something, a bigger name pitcher from somebody else that's looking to dump players. I don't know. There's a lot of it out there. I would be interested in sitting down with Minnesota. That'd be a good fit for both teams. Go after, what's it, Beres or whatever his name is, that their pitcher that he's in the last year of his contract. That might be a good fit. There's a lot of intriguing pitchers out there that aren't free agents, but I just can't see us going out spending a ton of money. As far as shortstops go, I don't see us landing a Seager. I just don't think that's in the works, especially now that we are going to have to pay Arenado this year. I'm not as thrilled with Trevor Story as a lot of people are. I think this year was the tale for him. He didn't play up to any expectations of whatsoever, but you became this, instead of second fiddle, you became the main singer, in that band. So maybe maybe that's a deal there that he gets a discount and a longer contract. I don't know.
Yeah, I think off-season wise, I mean, obviously, like I said, we thought we had a number of arms that would carry us through this year, and it didn't happen. The injury bug did hit, and then we had to bring in some guys that could throw strikes. I still think that the Cardinals don't go out and acquire much on the pitching front. When you got guys, even in the bullpen, that Whitley come on strong late. You do have Hudson that'll be slotted back as a starter. Michaelis, I'm kind of done with that project, but I know he's got another year on his deal. I think you still have guys that can be starters. Even Genesis Cabrera, I think could be put in a position like that, and Jake Woodford as well. He had a couple really good outings. I don't know that you trust that and not go out and maybe get a top tier arm, but in doing that, I don't know that the Cardinals do that and shortstop. And if you're going to do one of the two, I think shortstop is where you probably need to address a move. But having said that too, I don't think Correa is going to be the richest of the bunch. I don't think we'll make a move to get him. Baez, obviously, the head case we don't want really any part of. Story, I agree with you. I don't think he made a case for himself, even though him and Arenado having that connection, that might play into some of it. Simeon really is the one that I think the Cardinals could pay up on a 2 or 3 year deal for. But again, I mean, it's too early to tell what the Cardinals will do, but that's the two glaring needs. You're going to have the DH in the National League, but I think that kind of fits maybe a Newt Bar role or a Nolan Gorman getting called up type thing. And even looking back at the pitchers that eventually you're going to have to see Matthew Liberatore called up, at some point. The fans go crazy every time Rosarena does anything in the postseason. We need to see if that trade's going to pay off eventually or not. What say you, Jared?
It's hard to tell because, Liberatore and Thompson are so young, which Thompson's pitching in the Arizona Fall League now. But I was looking at some of the numbers, but the money's going to kind of balance itself out with everybody else because you got a lot of guys that are arbitration eligible also, like Flaherty, Bader, O'Neill. Those are all guys that are going to get raises again. Gallegos is on there as well. Hicks won't figure in for much of one because he didn't really play, which he started the game today for here in Arizona. But a lot of it was, Nolan Arenado is going to make $30 million next year. It's going to be a lot of it. The Rockies are still paying $5.5 million of next year. Waino got a $9.5 million raise. Yachty got a 1 year raise. And then with buyouts, Carb's $16.5 million. Andrew Miller's $12 million. Carlos is $11. Kim is $4 million. And we were still paying Dexter Fowler, which was $14,750,000, which is not bad for a day's work. But I missed part of your question. I was trying to figure out that math. I know you're talking about the Rosarena.
I seen the smoke. I thought you were doing numbers.
No. Yeah.
No, I mean, just your opinion on it. If shortstop or starting pitching or really any kind of pitching, what do you think is a top priority for the Cardinals? I mean, again, we're going to have the DH more than likely. I don't think we go out and get a Nelson Cruz or Pujols. Was the feel good story. I think they go with given that the rotating position of a Newt Bar or Gorman, giving a guy a day off and slotting somebody else in a different position. I think that's how the Cardinals will utilize the DH. But, I mean, your opinion on if they go out and try to acquire a Kyle Schwarber or, something like that, for offense, or if they do go shortstop and try to dangle DeYoung out there for something. What move do you think the Cardinals will do this offseason?
I definitely think that they will entertain the shortstop market. I think they will talk to people, but it's not going to be an open and shut case like people think. I think they're going to do their due diligence, as Mo would call it, and they're going to talk to Correa's people, and they're going to talk to Story's people, and they're going to talk to Simeon's agent. They're going to put feelers out there. But DeYoung didn't perform well, but DeYoung is still super cheap and affordable, and Sosa is still super cheap and affordable. So even the next few years we have DeYoung under contract, I think the most he makes is like $9 million, and that's 2 years from now. I think he's on the hook for $6 million next year. That's what I was looking at. That's still, in today's day and age, it's still super cheap. I mean, you might not want to pay that's bench guy money, so maybe they split time with Sosa. I mean, in my opinion, Sosa's kind of earned a spot if some of these other guys start clicking. And Larry made the comment himself, Edman is more than capable at shortstop if they want to continue the Nolan Gorman experiment, which he is here in the Arizona Fall League, which he's from Arizona. He played second base last night. If they want to try that Gorman experiment and throw him at second sometimes, have him DH on occasion, or even let Nolan DH on occasion and put Gorman at third, whatever the case may be. The Cardinals have always been one of those teams that like to try out their internal options. Liberatore and Thompson are going to have chances to make the team out of spring training. They were both in Memphis last year. They're not going to be pitching in Memphis for multiple years. If not to start the year, halfway through, depending on injuries. I'm sure whenever they go to spring training, everyone is going to be competing to earn a spot on the team. With Hudson and Waino being your two main guys. Carlos and Kim are going to be gone. That's two guys at your rotation. Miklas will factor in if he's healthy. Flaherty. So, I mean, you're going to have your fifth spot's going to be open and a long potential long guy out of the thing. You don't know what you're going to do with Reyes. I mean, we said this last year, but we have the options. It just depends on if everybody stays healthy. So I think they'll explore the market, but what are you going to get out of the market? I mean, Hap was paid $17.5 million this year, and he wasn't worth it. So, I mean, it's kind of like I think they'll do their due diligence, again, like Mo would say, on checking shortstop and, the pitching market, but I don't see anything happening. Doesn't have to be a lock. I mean, I could definitely see them trying to work something out. If they could work something out with a trade, I think that's more likely with somebody like Kinsner, or if they were going to move DeYoung, like you said, Chris, trying to trade him for something else, maybe to get a back arm or a bullpen piece or something. But I don't know. I mean, they cannot make any moves, honestly. And if everyone performs well and they cut down the walks and they play like they did in the season, they're a first place team, like we all said they would be.
Yeah, and I know that Mo has went out and made, or whether it's Mo or Gersh, go out and make the moves of getting an Arenado in here and a Goldschmidt in here, and you're not going to have a superstar brought in every season, and I get that. But when you have that much money coming off the books, even if you've got that ton of young talent that you want to give a shot to, and I'm kind of I'm glad that he gave O'Neill and Bader and Carlson, a full year in the outfield to kind of see what you have, because you have to do that, or you're just going to have a bunch of aging prospects that you don't know what you have in. But when you have that much money coming off the books, you played not up to par all season long, fought your tail off, as Shildt would say, to get into that one-game wild card and fell short. It will be hard for Mo or DeWitt to address the crowd, fans of St. Louis, and say, we had all this money coming off the books. We've got Wainwright and Yachty's farewell. We got a new manager. We're going all in, and we didn't spend that money on bringing anything in here to get us over the top. I think you have to bring in somebody, not sure who or what, but you've got to do something to add a piece to get the team over the top. You can't ride out let's see what the young guys do again. I think you do that, but you got to bring in one extra piece of the puzzle, at least.
Nolan Arenado was a shortstop before he became a third baseman. Just saying.
I don't want to do that experiment.
I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. No, I mean, like you said, moving Edman to short, you could, what trade value does, Andrew have? And then you toss in, say, one of those relievers, even like Hicks, because we got too many guys that are wanting to start. You give up a Hicks, you give up Andrew, and you give up Sosa or DeYoung, and even maybe give rid of a Michaelis. Because there's a team out there like a Rangers that wants somebody like Michaelis that, where he started. Well, he's in Arizona originally, wasn't he? Yeah. So, but, the guy like that, I mean, he could go in there and he could be leadership, if nothing else. And if you ate part of his salary, you might get something in exchange from them. I'm not saying you're going to get a major piece, but you clear out some of your, your excess baggage, I guess. And by doing that, you also free up some more money. And like I said, I don't see Seager coming here. I'm sorry. I just don't. And I see Carrera more as a Yankee than anything else. And the reason being is I don't see the Astros ponying up that kind of money for him. I think they're on their downward swirl now. I think that's just as it is. I mean,
they have a really good shortstop prospect too. So it'd be kind of,
that's what I was going to say. They have another shortstop as well. But the Yankees, they've talked about it for the last 2 years that, they have to do something at shortstop and move him to second base because he's just not a shortstop. And so I see Carrera headed there. Simeon, he's played second base this year and he did well. He may just stay in Canada and continue playing second base. So there's a lot of prospects we can poke fingers at, or, we can hope for, but most typical movement is not signing a big free agent. I mean, realistically, what's the last big name free agent we really went out and got free agent wise? Dexter Fowler. I mean, other a position player, that was probably the last real big name we went after. And you see how that turned out. So I don't know. I think our outfield's set. I think our outfield's set for the next 20 years, to be honest with you. We got a lot of young talent in the minors as well in the outfield. Edman, again, I would like to see him more in that utility role where he could play every day, but play different positions, because I think that bat plays. And I think that he could be an everyday second baseman and be a Gold Glover. I agree with that 100%, but I don't see us spending a $30 million a year for another guy to come in. And unless he's a 30-30 guy that can, hit and steal bases, I really don't.
Well, and everybody wants Trevor Story, but he's not a great hitter himself. I mean, honestly, he didn't have a good year. So I was surprised the Rockies didn't trade him, but to go overpay, and Mozeliak's going to say that exact thing. We did our due diligence and explored the opportunities, but getting someone like a Dakota Hudson back for a full year, that is it. He's a great pitcher. That's better than anybody we could have went out and picked up for that kind of money, or the return didn't make sense. That's what they say every year. And I think, and in his defense, he's always made good moves. I mean, he went out and got Happ and Lester, and we got Garcia and McFarland through the year, and LeBlanc, and we all said these are dumb, but they paid off and they worked. So, I mean, you can't criticize it too much, but I'm kind of one of those guys too. I would rather see what we have with our guys we already have instead of overpaying. But I think you should go out and check if you can somehow work a deal. The good thing you have to think about is a lot of the teams that are going to spend money, like the Astros, the Red Sox, and the Dodgers, with, like Larry said, minus the Yankees, are already going to have that spot full. So they're not going to be trying to go out and spend a ton of money to lock someone in that spot, to where the Cardinals might have an opportunity just because of their winning ways and tradition and the team that they kind of have together. Somebody might say, yeah, I would like to go play there. Like Trevor Story. I think if Trevor Story were going to come to St. Louis, he would probably have the Cardinals pay less than somewhere else. That's one thing that we have going for us, I think.
Yeah, and I'm sure we're going to have a long off season to talk about hot stove topics and, all kinds of players that we'd like to see the Cardinals go after. But, we'll get ready to wrap this one up. And hopefully, like, when we hop on next time, we can kind of go deep dive, really position to position, and give our grades of what we thought, from each particular position, and players that had breakout seasons for the Cardinals, and, get some of the other guys on and, give our overall opinion. But we wanted to hop on. We hadn't been on a couple of weeks with the Cardinals losing. We were kind of all a little bit down in the dumps. And today's breaking news with Shildt, we had to jump on here and, give our thoughts on that. So,
what the Cardinals like to do also, you guys, is, sorry, Chris, but I just get thinking they like to try to lock, guys up early. At what point in time do you actually make that offer to Flaherty to see if he's going to walk or not? Because I'm still a firm believer, if you think he's going to walk before his arbitration years are done, you got to move him. If you don't think there's a way to sign him, you got to start thinking after the year Tyler O'Neill had, maybe you try to lock him up early. So, you throw a lot of money out to a young guy like that, like they did with, they did it with Carp. They threw an extension out because they did it when Carp was playing well. It looks like a bad extension, but if Carp would have continued to play the way he did, we would have been making bank. They locked DeYoung down early for pretty affordable price. Wong, Carlos Martinez. And Carlos Martinez would have made, he was a good enough pitcher to make good money somewhere else for a while. It didn't work out this year, but at some point in time, how Mozeliak is, he's going to be thinking, okay, are we going to keep Edman long-term? Tyler O'Neill, Flaherty, we have to start thinking before last minute, are we going to try to sign these guys or whatever? And some of that money has to be allocated there. Catcher of the future. What are we going to do there? Are we going to have a stopgap for a year after Yachty leaves, depending on how Herrera does? There's a lot of questions in the future, but like you said, next year they're going to be under the gun. So if they're going to make a crazy move and trade for someone or sign a free agent, it probably will be this offseason.
Yeah, and you're right. There is a lot of money arbitration-wise that the Cardinals do need to get figured out before they start coming up with a game plan of moving forward for next season. But, just kind of final thoughts on the day in the season and, tonight's show. Larry, I'll start with you. Kind of final words.
If you're a Walking Dead fan, at the end of the show, they have the Talking Dead. And in that show, they always show the walkers. So we say goodbye to, I feel like right about now, Mike Shildt should be going across as a zombie right about now. And they like lop off his head or something. I don't know. Cause that's the way I have that. That's the way I felt about today.
In memoriam.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Jared. So, and I think that was, that's the whole time I just keep running through my head right now. Here's Shildt going through and but But yeah, it's been a very, very strange day today.
Jared, I'll kick it to you. Final thoughts on the day, and not really having to recap the season, but just final thoughts.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it, especially with the season still technically with the playoffs still underway. I think Shildt will wind up somewhere. One of these teams has an open spot. I think he's done too well in his tenure to not be offered a job somewhere. The thing that shocked me is, I could be all for them getting rid of Maddox and a couple others too. I don't think our coaching staff has ever. I think it's probably the weakest it's probably ever been as far as up and down the coaching staff. But I don't know. I don't know what else you want me to say. I forgot.
Mike Maddox does have a pretty hot daughter, though.
Wouldn't it be ironic if the Mike Shildt ends up being manager of the year?
He could be a candidate.
He is. I mean, he's got to be. That 17-game win streak, he has to be in the running.
I mean, you see, like I can see the San Diego manager being fired just because the expectation of that team and falling so short. You can't fire Tatis, you can't fire Machado, you can't fire Snell or any of those guys. You got to get rid of somebody. It's going to be the manager.
Yeah, and I'll just say the same. I was shocked with the news today. Kind of disappointed at the way that the season ended, but the Cardinals did give us a lot of ups and downs like any other year, and there was a lot of good to take away from it. Even through some of the struggles, it was nice to see some of the players like a Carlson get his start and a full season O'Neill. And like I said, we'll deep dive into that on the next time that we all get together. But I appreciate you guys tuning in and listening on the audio versions and checking out the YouTube video, and appreciate both my co-hosts here because it has been a fun season of relaunching this podcast and talking baseball with you guys. It's been a blast. So we'll try to do this again next week, and throughout the season. This isn't going to be a one and done. We're going to stick with it and continue podcasting because we enjoy Cardinal baseball and enjoy talking ball with all of you. So having said that, go Cards.
Go Cards.
Go Cards.